more that just want to share their project.
Awesome.
So,
Anything, yeah.
Yeah, first up will be Emmett. Yeah, go ahead. I think if you come up here. Can you guys hear him? Like, if you, let me know if you can hear him.
So for my, I think it's my 9th project, I'm working on, I set up a project on aircraft materials, so different materials aircraft were built out of. For this project, we are going to come up with 60 to 80 notes on, like, for me, how much or how many different materials, what materials were used for these aircraft. Right now I'm building a model of what I want to build.
Yeah.
I'm building a model right now of the different, materials that aircraft are made out of. So I'm going to use like wood and, canvas and other materials like aluminum. This one. So,
that's great. Is there a specific time period that you're modeling the aircraft after?
For me right now, I'm more of like an early biplane, 19, I think it's 20-ish, 1920s. So
Cool.
that's what I'm doing.
Thank you.
I think that we just came more to watch today, so I think I didn't mean to sign up. Sorry.
No, that's great. Anything is wonderful. That's what we're trying to get many people to talk as possible. And remember, this is very informal. So even if you have a question in the middle, and it doesn't even have to pertain to the topic, if you just want to know how something's done at a different school or want to ask how people do different projects, you can definitely ask.
I'm going to talk about my project for health and technology. So, I did a project on health and technology and how technology affects your health. So I tested students by having them read a book for 10 minutes and then playing games and seeing, and then I'll have them play a game of chess. I'll have them play a game of chess to see who's more focused. So I noticed that the people who played games more had a really hard time focusing and and they mostly lost the game of chess. And for that project, I did a lot about like how it affects your back and your eyes, your ears, Yeah.
Have you seen these new working desks or these new walking desks that they have?
No.
Should look into it. It's basically where like your desk is a treadmill, so you can just walk while you're working. So
Wow.
I want to get one, but they're pretty spendy. Paul from Wildlands is gonna buy me one though, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Great job.
Okay, so who's in? Hunter, you're kind of in, not really.
Are you up?
Yep.
Is that all from the others from STEM, or is it Wildlands' turn?
Go to town, I guess. Change this.
Oh, that's awesome.
Hunters, maybe.
There.
How do we screen share?
Right
Go
here.
down to screen
This
share.
one?
Yeah,
Okay.
do that after
Share
you
screen.
introduce
Okay.
Okay.
Figure that out.
And I'll turn on. If you could just turn off all light.
Okay.
For both.
All right. So my name is Ben Berthium. I am a senior here at Wildlands. This is my 4th year.
I'm Felicia. This is my 5th year. I'm a junior.
And one thing that we're going to share with you guys today is about a trip that we just got back from. We just got back from Gulf Breeze, Florida on a marine biology trip, and we created this site we're going to share with you real quick. So we're going to go to share screen.
So we were there for 6 days, and it was primarily a biology trip, so we worked with marine biologists, and we just wanted to share a little bit of what we did. It was a really cool trip, so we hope this is a good presentation for you.
And this is just a Google site that we put together. Then talk about the documentation.
Sure.
Yeah, the documentation.
So below here, they're looking at our screen right now,
Yes.
just to be clear. Okay,
You can
good.
use the mouse too to show.
So below here, right here, this is the description that we shared with the school board. So if you want to take a look at anything on our site, please feel free to do that later. We're not going to walk through everything right now. Up here is our schedule, packing list, food groups, forms, reporting templates. You can look at those later too. We're not going to go into that. Each day there was a small group of students that were assigned to document what happened that day and put it on our site. So each page of this site for each separate day is made by a different group of students. So we're going to start with our first day, which is Thursday. This day we went to the National World War II Museum in New Orleans, Louisiana. So we stopped there on our way to Florida. We had the pleasure of getting to meet with some of our hosts. You can see them here. Their names were Mike, Ray, and George. It was super interesting to talk to them. Maybe the highlight, though, of being at this museum, something that's really interesting was oral history accounts. You can read a little bit about them here, but basically they have kind of interviews from veterans that they place all around the museum, and they place them with artifacts that are relevant with the story that the veteran is telling. It's really, really cool to see. Some things that students learned, a lot of kids were really intrigued by an exhibit that they have called Road to Berlin. So it tells the European side of this story. It's really cool. And we also learned that in 2016, they will be opening a pavilion called Liberation, and it will be about the liberating of POW and concentration camps, and about the aftermath of the war for each country that was involved. Any questions about this day or the museum? Cool. Moving on to Friday.
All right, so one thing that was very interesting about Friday, this is the first day that we were in Florida, we got to meet with a marine biologist named Rick, and he actually, since we were actually staying on this barrier island, we took our bus down towards the end to a less populated area, and we explored the ecology with him. And what a barrier island looks like, and we'll see a picture of this later on Sunday. But if you look at an aerial photo of it, you have the shoreline, so like Florida shoreline, but further out, there's a smaller stretch of sand, pretty much this sandbar, and that's protecting the shoreline from things like hurricanes and waves and wind. So barrier islands play a role in protecting the actual shoreline of Florida and us. And wildlife has taken advantage of this. A lot of animals will find shelter in these dunes that are created by the island. So they'll create habitat for things like raccoons, coyotes, alligators, turtles, everything. A lot of these animals depend on this kind of an ecosystem to survive.
So later on in the day, we went and we visited Fort Pickens, which was a fort primarily used in the Civil War, but it's actually still standing, and you can see from these pictures that it's standing pretty well. Something I found interesting about the fort was that it was originally built by a man who was later on part of the Confederate Army, but it was controlled by the Union Army, which was weird because it's in Florida, right, which is down south. And he basically told the people there that he wanted it back because he built it, and they told him to come and get it, and he was unsuccessful in that. So this is a really cool fort. It's really pretty. We have some great pictures. These are just two. And then from there, we actually moved on to Sky Transect training, which Ben's going to tell you a little bit about.
Okay, so one of the most interesting things we did in this trip is we teamed with the National Park Service to collect Sky Transect data. And that sounds really confusing, and it's kind of hard to explain. If you imagine taking a spaghetti strainer and you were to shine a light underneath it, all the lights would come through the holes. That's what we were doing. Because the reason we were taking measurements of light at all those angles, and the reason why we're doing this is because when sea turtles come to shore and they lay their eggs, they just leave. All the baby sea turtles will hatch and have to fend for themselves. Before we populated the shoreline and had all this light pollution, the one source of light that sea turtles could use was the moon, and that would reflect off the water, and sea turtles would know, oh, I got to go to the brightest light because that's where the water is. Well, since we have all of this light pollution now, sea turtles are actually heading the opposite direction inland and getting killed by cars. The sun will come up and they'll dry out. Birds will get them. Some sea turtles actually make it all the way to the opposite side of the island, so they'll travel all the wrong way they need to be going. And what we're doing by collecting all this measuring this light is we're being able to say, oh, they'll be able to measure the light because
You'll be able to
Yeah.
tell where the light pollution is and where the sea turtles are struggling because they're going to go towards the brightest white light. That's supposed to be the ocean, but unfortunately it's not. So it's basically wiping out a lot of sea turtles. So our next day is Saturday. Ben is actually going to tell you a little bit about this.
All right. You can see right here that we have some Google slideshows. We're going to go through and pause some of those and talk about some of the pictures. Now, one thing that we were looking at the next day was beach vitex, and that's actually an invasive species in Florida. It came over from Asia. It was originally brought over to help contain erosion on the sand dunes, but it actually did the exact opposite. Because the sand dunes are important for beach ecology, like we talked about before. All of the beach vitex does, it doesn't grow out like a lot of the plants do on the dunes. It'll just grow down and then grow out on top of the sand. So that's bad for sea turtles and native species. It's bad for everything. So we spend some time in ground zero of beach vitex infestation, removing that. So we can go through some of the pictures and see what that looks like.
And this, it sounds like a weed, which is what we were expecting it to be, but especially during the winter, it's about this big around and it's very wooden. You can see kind of a big root that one of our students is holding there. And we joked that it was kind of like logging because these were really thick and they were hard to pull out and they're like this far underground.
Yeah, if you were to Google a picture of beach vitex, you wouldn't get anything like what we have there. It would look like this flowering kind of plant that you can just rip out of the ground.
But
not the case.
during the winter, it's not that pretty.
Definitely not the case. And we teamed up with the University of Western Florida for this. Another thing we teamed up for them with was a marine ecology research day. Kind of hard. So what we did was we went to a local beach with these students from the university, a group called the MERS, Marine Ecology Research Society, and they educated us on the ecology of these shallow areas of the ocean, these kind of nurseries for small fish. Because since it's shallower in the areas we were sampling, all these larger predators couldn't come in and pick off these small fish. So we found a lot of things like shrimp, invertebrates, clams, very tiny fish, as you'll see in these pictures. And they essentially just took us aside and showed us all the cool things that they could help us find. And the data we collected, these are the techniques that these universities are using to sample these areas. So we're doing university level work with university level people. We would test the water with them, collect all these samples, and then we'd go back to their lab and see things that they had collected, and they were just alongside us teaching us these amazing things.
So we spent about 2 or 3 hours in the Sound, which is a small body of water on one side of Pensacola. You can see the pictures up there where we have nets and we're just collecting some stuff. We're looking at really cool things with the university students, and they're explaining to us. It was really cool to see experienced people explaining to us what we're seeing, because in Wisconsin, obviously, we have none of this stuff and we had no idea what any of it was. And then we moved on to their lab.
Yep, and the previous day when we were talking about sky transects, that was actually our practice day. And then the following night, we split up into like 4 or 5 groups, and we all would measure light on our beach we were staying at. So these are just some pictures of us completing that field work. And you can see that we have all these red lights. The reason why we have red lights is because sea turtles have a harder time picking out that color. Even though it wasn't nesting season and they shouldn't have been out, that'll oftentimes confuse turtles. So you get like a bluish LED light. So the red lights are just there not to harm the turtles.
Yeah, we just didn't want to add to the light pollution that we were trying to help raise awareness for. Okay, so on Sunday, this was maybe the most interesting part of our trip. On all the other days, we were working with professionals and they were educating us about the nature there and the stuff that's different from Florida to Wisconsin and all this cool stuff. And on Sunday, we actually got a chance to relax and use our imaginations, and we came up with our own projects that we could do on our own on the beaches. So we just had a chaperone, and we were able to just go out and come up with anything we wanted to do that would educate us and use the skills that we had been learning the entire week. So one thing that we wanted to talk about is the sand horizons. One group decided that they wanted to look at sand horizons comparing the Gulf and the Bay. So they took horizons or levels of the sand and wanted to see which one had the most variety. And they found out that the Bay had the most variety of the two. So that was just an example of one of the projects we did. And then Ben's project, actually, he's going to talk about it really quick. It's up there.
There we go. And this is the picture I was talking about when I said we'd talk about the sound more and to get an aerial photo of Barrier Island. This is what I was talking about. So this is the Gulf of Mexico right there. And since we have like winds and waves and hurricanes coming through, there isn't a lot of diversity on this side of the Gulf. And this is the sound right here. That's where it's all protected, and then animals can have, marine animals at least, can have a little habitat. The same thing is true on these little party islands right here. This whole face right here, there's a lot of diversity, but the further back you go, you'll get things like small inland marshes and creeks and habitat for all these animals. And we sampled the water from an inland marsh and the sound to compare the diversity of microorganisms. So we took a very fine filter, a tow net, and we caught all these small organisms and we compared the diversity under a microscope. So we essentially looked and said, okay, there are this many types of small creatures in the inland marsh, and that's so much more than the sound. So we were able to figure out that the salt marsh had more diversity because it was stagnant and it'd be easier for these organisms to exist.
And then another example of a project that we did, do you want to click on what sea life can we find in the Gulf?
This one?
Yep.
Okay.
So one group actually discovered a mushroom-capped jellyfish while they were out. It was actually my group. We found it half buried in the sand. You can see in this top picture right here, it's kind of half buried in the sand. So we picked that up. It was dead, and we took it home. And there is a myth that not all jellyfish sting. That is not true. All jellyfish can sting, but what people get confused about is that a lot of jellyfish, this one included, are non-aggressive. So they're not going to sting you basically in any situation unless you really provoke them. So this one was dead. We were very careful where we touched it. We brought it back to our beach home. We all stayed in a nice beach house while we were there, and we were able to study it and just kind of find out some facts about it. It was really interesting for us to be able to do that. So our next day was Monday. This was the day that we left. So we packed up from our beach house and we headed to the Florida Public Archaeology Network. So we were able to work with some archaeologists there, and they just told us, basically we just sat down and we had some really interesting conversations about what they do. And in this picture here, we all have pans of things that they have dug up during their research, and they were able to sit down with us and tell us, like, oh, this fork that you just found, it's from the colonial period. It was really cool to be able to do that. And then we were able to take a look at their museum and just check out the things that they found and spend a little bit of time with them. And then we stopped at this restaurant called the Fish House. It was a really cool restaurant. We all just really enjoyed it. It was cool to be able to taste some of the local food that they were able to serve us there, and it was a really nice restaurant.
And these are some pictures from the National Aviation Museum. This is our last stop on our way out of Florida. And this is my favorite museum we visited just because of the sheer number of artifacts. Just imagine this large room filled with airplanes on the ground, strung up in the ceiling. And there's a lot of history, because you'd walk around and imagine like a timeline, pretty much, a timeline of the airplanes. You start at the beginning and work your way all the way through until you get to like more modern airplanes. It's actually the headquarters of the Blue Angels, the place we were at. So there are a lot of retired planes that the Blue Angels had actually used. That was a very interesting museum for us to tour.
Unfortunately, we weren't able to see the Blue Angels actually fly. They practice on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and we were there on a Monday. But it was really cool to see some of the planes that have flown as part of the Blue Angels and just be able to experience where they are. So as a takeaway from this trip, my favorite part of this trip personally was working with the University of West Florida and their marine biology department. I thought it was cool to work with university students, and they treated us like we were on their level. And I thought it was really cool to be able to compare. We do some of the things that they did with us here in Wisconsin, and it was really neat to see the different things that you can dredge up using a tow net in Wisconsin versus in Florida.
The highlight of the trip for me personally would be working with the National Park Service on the Skytrans X, because it's kind of hard to explain with the pictures being all red and light and dark, but it was just interesting to see, okay, this is going to actually help the sea turtle population, and it was cool that we got to go and do something. Instead of getting experience and leaving, we left something behind that's going to help other people.
Are there any questions about the trip or anywhere we went?
Stop this year.
Stop share.
I have a question.
Yeah.
From Birchwood. How did you pay for this trip? Did you do like fundraisers, or did your school like pay it or something?
Well, we worked really hard doing a lot of fundraisers, writing letters to people asking for donations to lower the cost for the trip. But in the end, students did have to pay their own way, but we worked really hard trying to lower the cost to pay for our coach bus, for our house, stuff like that. We did some really cool fundraisers that, pardon?
We cooked our own food. We prepared our own food at the house. That brought the cost way down instead of having to pay for food everywhere we went.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. How much did it actually cost you? Like, totally.
Would you like to answer that question?
I'll answer that just from the teacher standpoint because we're still crunching the final numbers. If we would have done this without fundraisers, it would have cost about $700, around $700 for the week. And our final analysis is going to put it below 500 for each student for 1 week. 7 full days, the bus, the hotel or the beach house, food, admission to all the places. So comparable education trips that we look at, if you buy them with tour companies, cost you somewhere between $1,500 and $2,000. So if you do it as a project at your school, you can save a lot of money.
Oh yeah, wow.
Thank you.
I have a question from the ICA.
Teacher says.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I might have missed this, but where exactly did you guys go in Florida?
We were on the Gulf Island National Shores. So if you picture Florida, if you picture the peninsula, we were up on the mainland. So the shores actually span from New Orleans in Louisiana all the way to where the peninsula of Florida starts. So we weren't on what people would typically think of as Florida. Oh, look, there's a map.
Is this Cybert?
No.
Todd.
Yeah, Tom,
Yeah.
if you just zoom in on Pensacola,
Pensacola.
right there. Zoom right down in on Pensacola, and go to, there's that straight, see that right there where it says Santa Rosa Island and Pensacola Beach, Gulf Islands National Seashore right there. That's very thin strip of Barrier Island right there is the island we studied on. The fort is on the far left, way past where it says Gulf Islands, Fort Pickens, and our study area was right around the number 399 for that highway. That's a natural area right there. So we spent most of our time right there on that Barrier Island on the Gulf.
Oh, geez, I'm having a hard time with this. My mouse is touchy.
Our house was right on that island too.
Cool.
Cybert.
She's sharing something.
So one thing we didn't get to, we'll go back to when Todd's done sharing the map there, we'll show you some really good pictures here just for a second that have been we're putting them up as we speak right now. So here's our picture page.
Yeah. So we just have a few random ones right now. We're actually working on editing some of them. But here, this is all the World War II Museum in here. And then our stop through New Orleans, this is a picture of that. This is our beach house. It was really, really pretty. It was really nice to stay in. And then we've got our hike through the dunes. We got to see some of the desert type area in there. This is on our first hike through the dunes, we actually saw a jellyfish. So this is a dead jellyfish that we were able to hold. It was, as you can see, very exciting for us. And then this is us in Fort Pickens. So this is a group shot there. And then, like I was saying, it's a really beautiful place. These are some really gorgeous pictures that some of our photography students got there. It's a really pretty place. The next day, here's us pulling Beach Vitex as a group shot. And then I think you've seen most of these pictures, but these ones all the way through here are us actually in the sound collecting things to take back and look at, just kind of exploring the sound there. And then these last two are the lab at the University of West Florida. So we're hopefully going to have some more pictures up. You can come back and visit our website anytime, look at the stuff you might have missed, or the stuff we didn't touch on, read our content, stuff like that.
Can you guys throw the website in the chat?
Yeah. We also, there's a movie, and I see it needs permission. They didn't put a permission on there. There's a movie from our first day on the beach ecology. We can just copy this right here. We'll put it up there right now. It is open to anybody. Yeah, just copy that and then go stop share. Go to chat to all, and then just click right in here. Oh, hang on, do click all.
Sorry.
And then there you go. Okay, and hit return. There. Okay, so there's the website. It's open, it's public, as long as you have the link. We'll be putting the website, a link to that website on our website as well at Wildlands. So there's, if you want to go to it from the other schools, that's the link right there.
So what was the planning time on this? When did you guys dream up this idea and get it rolling?
Liz?
Todd, I thought of it last year. I really started planning with people over the summer. And then, I don't know, I guess just worked through different things. And by a ton of luck and a lot of really nice people, this worked out really amazing for the students. So it was great to have the University of West Florida willing to team up with us. We were meeting people along the way. One of the things that the students didn't even touch on, which I thought was really impressive, was while we were at the National World War II Museum, the head of their education department asked if they could borrow our students to test out their new scavenger hunt that they were building. And so we had a team of students that were helping them develop a scavenger hunt for schools that were coming because they had this new display open. And Rick O'Connor, that led the tour on, I believe it was Friday morning, on Friday morning, he's using some of the things that the students have done in a report that he's writing for something that he's doing. And the National Park Service, relied on our students for collecting this data that they're using in their studies. And it was really amazing to see the students working hand in hand with these professional organizations, and they're learning a lot, but also collaborating. And that was incredibly beneficial.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Chance of a lifetime.
We do have one last thing that just dropped onto the website. The morning production team has been working here, so we're gonna share screen and show you a quick movie that some of the students just produced from some of the work we're doing.
Paul, when you do that, I was just actually talking with the Zoom people today. When you go to share your screen, stop sharing again and then start sharing again. At the bottom of the screen, there's a little box that says optimize for HD video or something. Click that and then click share computer sound if there's sound.
Size for full screen video clip, right?
Yeah.
And then share screen.
Share computer sound.
Share computer sound.
You already
okay, I got both of them clicked. Yep. Okay. And then if we play the movie.
Should be able to do your full screen little thing in the corner too, hopefully.
Troy University, which is not on the coast, they send you to Dolphin Island Sea Lab.
Okay.
Where's that? It's in Alabama. It's on an island over there in Alabama. It's not very far.
How long did it take you? Was it like 4 years?
It was a 4-year degree. And then I went back and got a master's from the University of Southern Mississippi.
When did you get interested in marine biology?
When I was in the 7th grade, I went snorkeling out there when I was a kid. We lived in a house out here.
Oh,
and as soon as I went underwater, I was hooked. I said, this is what I want. I want to get paid to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, what they do is they take a series of tanks. There's a lab here on the island that does it. And so they'll pick a chemical pollutant they might be concerned about. It's oil, dispersant, mercury. You decide what the chemical is. And then they put fish or whatever animal. You have to decide which one, but you want to use the same thing. So let's say pinfish. I'll put 10 pinfish in all the tanks. I may have 15 tanks. So I'll put pinfish in every tank. The pinfish I put in there, I'll put the same number. Everything's got to be the same. It's got to be the same size tank, same amount of sand. All of that's got to be equal. Male, female, if you're going to go that far with it, they'll do all of that. The first tank, they do nothing. The second tank, they'll put, let's say, 5%, 10%, 15%. They keep adding that, and when 50% of the population dies, we call it LD50, lethal dose 50. And when 50% of the population dies, then we say, all right, that's the lethal dose. So whatever that is, let's say it's 20%, then the government comes back and says, all right, the chemical companies can discharge this, but not higher than this. Because higher than this, it's going to cause. That's the line in the sand. Now, because of animal rights situations, justly so, they usually take it to what we call loss of equilibrium now. When the fish starts acting weird, then they stop it. They stop it. If he starts slowing down, if his eyes are doing something weird, we don't need to go any further. We get it. He doesn't like this.
Yeah.
So we stop it on that now. And that's how they do that.
So is the chemical that you put in the tanks the same
ones that they drop from the planes?
Yeah, that's
Pick up
how
the
the
oil?
lab that does it here, they just run the tests. So the companies will come in or the government will come in and say, hey, I want you to run a test on. And the problem with the oil spill is that they had a lot of data already on the impacts of oil. But when they put the dispersant on top of it, and they got data on the dispersant, but when you put the oil and dispersant together, it was a completely different chemical component now. It had no data on it, so no one had any idea how much to put on there. And they just sprayed it. They just sprayed it. I mean, I see both sides of it. Everybody, I mean, from the scientific community, we were saying, like, don't do that because we know what the impacts are right now. When you do that, we won't know. But they said if we don't do it, if the currents are going to wash it all over the place. And most of the animals, I believe, if you watched anything, a lot of the animals that were having trouble were at the surf, the dolphins and the sea turtles that had to come and get a breath of air, the birds that were diving into it. Those were the animals that were struggling. Once it went down, now everybody's got a problem. All the fish were fine until they did that. So there were pros and cons, but I understand why they did it. I don't know if I agree, but I understand why they did it. I understand why they did it.
So is that like the latest technology for dealing with oil spills, or is that looking back?
There's a cool little lab you can do in school on it where you just take a tray and you fill it with oily water, and the dispersant would be Tide. You just take Tide detergent, spread it on there. It will literally bond with the oil and sink to the bottom. We call it mousse at that point. But the point is you can still see it. So it didn't go away. Another thing with the Exxon Valdez, they put cheerleading pom-poms out there. So we demonstrate that by just taking cotton balls, you put it in there. It sucks it all up, but now you got a pile of oily. So the bottom line is that you don't really get rid of it. You just move it from here to here. So you have to decide where you're going to move it because once it's out, it's out. So they're trying all kinds of things. Actually, there was one idea. There's some microbes that will eat oil, that actually consume it. And they were talking about maybe spreading that out there. But the question was, once it's kind of like letting lionfish out to do this, and then all of a sudden they're done, well, now what are they going to eat? So everybody was really new. You can't really get the bacteria back.
Right.
So they didn't go with that. There just hadn't been enough tests yet to decide whether that's a good idea or not. But people...
Stop your share. So there you go. You have to disable that.
Does anyone have any questions or any comments to add about that?
We should get that guy.
I have one from
what's
Birchwood.
going on and ask him questions. Wow.
Yeah.
He was amazing.
No kidding.
I have a question from Birchwood.
Yeah.
What was the temperature there?
It was not like tropical Florida weather that you would picture. It was, I would say, did it ever reach like 45, 55? It was probably like 65 at the very, very hottest. But while we were doing our night transects at night, we were in like coats and like long pants, and we had our mittens and our hats on. And it was funny because the people from Florida were actually in like down coats, and it was like 50, and we were like, okay. They thought it was really cold, but it wasn't tropical.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anything else? Okay, cool. I think we're done then.
Mm-hmm. I don't know anything to say.
Anybody else that wants to share? Thank you so much, Wildlands, for that. You guys have an unbelievable experience, and I can't wait to see what it sparks, because I'm sure everyone's got project ideas now on what to do next. So we can keep catching up every month, I'm sure, with where this goes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone from any other schools want to share anything that's going on? Anything at all? ICA? Did I see a hand there? I can unmute you. There. Oh. There you go. Oh. Every time I go to unmute it, you. Okay.
All right, there we go. We're going to share about our independent projects. Which do you know what an independent project is? But so my name's Hunter Baylog, and I'm doing a service project on fire departments. And actually, the fire departments will come in with their trucks and we're going to have a raffle. And me and another friend, and what they're going to do is whoever wins the raffle can win a ride in the fire truck. And if they want to pay like an extra fee, they can spray the hose at a target.
So we have to have 3 independent projects and 1 service project for school year. So he's doing his service project now.
Are there any questions on my project?
I have a question from Birchwood. Where does the money go to?
All the money goes straight to the Cumberland Fire Department so that they can
Thank you.
get new things. And are there any other questions?
I'm Amber Butzler, and I'm also doing a service project. I'm doing it with one of the other students in the ICA. And what we are doing is we are collecting school supplies for kids in our community. And we have bins set up at different locations around our town, so then people can donate to that. And our second fundraising idea is Revenge of the Students, which I have to explain this because a million ideas can start flowing into everyone's heads. But what we did is we asked all of the teachers in our school if they would like to take a pie in the face by a student who bids on the teacher. We are raising money, and with that money, we are going to give it to the NOW program, which is nutrition on weekends. Any questions?
The nutrition on weekends program, how does that work?
What they do is they collect like food and school supplies, and they put it in backpacks, and then they bring it to schools in our local area to the kids that need it.
Cool. I think that's with something similar in Birchwood called the backpack program. So I had an inkling that maybe that's what it was.
Any other questions?
Okay, so I'm Julianne Johnson, and my project is on, I wanted to know, well, how do I word this? So I wanted to know the different kind of pets that each child and their family have in our school district if they have a pet. So I'm sending out a survey and asking why, and I want to find out like maybe labs have a certain, or black lab dogs have a certain like companion or good with family, or a guard dog, or so, okay, it's hard to explain, but that's pretty much the gist of it. So I'm sending out a survey to our whole district.
You'll have to let us know what you find. Are you doing it on paper or using Google Form or technology or anything?
Google Forms.
Maybe you can send it to these guys.
Yeah, if you want, you can always share the link here.
You could share it with Ms. Zip, and Ms. Zip could.
Ms. Zip could put it.
That's what we're here for. I have a cat, if you want to write it down. His name is Simo.
Mrs. Snowbank. Miss Snowbank, sorry, Miss Snowbank.
Anything else from ICA?
I don't know if she wants to share anything else. You want to share anything else?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Birchwood teachers want to talk about anything that's going on tomorrow? Maybe get some.
I'll actually do it.
You gonna do it, Tim?
Yeah. So the whole school district of Birchwood has and helps out with Barn and Berkey. It's a big event in Hayward. It's basically we help these, it's called like Barney Buddies, and it's a little it's where children in elementary can go out and go on this. I don't know how long how long it.
1K.
Yeah, 1K ski trip through Hayward trails, and we basically go beside them and help them, pick them up if they fall, so forth.
First and second graders.
First and second graders. Elementary.
Does everyone know what the Birkebeiner is? The Birkebeiner is a large ski race up in Hayward, international ski race that is gigantic every single year. And this is kind of the youth portion of it. So the day before they do this this children's race, and it's really, really cool. There's people from everywhere, from all around the world, kids too. And then I'll spur this one. Birchwood's gonna try to do something tomorrow too, while some are at the ski race and some are at home. We're gonna try to do a virtual visitation day. So something that the Innovative Schools Network does, and Wildlands had them before. I believe ICA has had some before, is where students come in, or where teachers and administrators come in and they visit your school, and you kind of explain to them how your day goes, what programs you use, your flow, your advisory, all sorts of different things. And they spend a day with you kind of touring and learning what you do. We're going to try to do this virtually to save some time and some money for people for traveling. So we're going to take, I think with Jenny and Kelly's, about 2 hours tomorrow. And we're going to try to run a whole visitation day in a couple hours with screen shares of students explaining different programs that we use, like Project Foundry and Noodle Tools and Google Docs and all kinds of different things. We're doing it kind of as a pilot, so we're not necessarily inviting anybody to it. I don't know if we're open to that, but we're just going to do it as a test run and record it. And then in the next couple of months, we're going to try to do some live ones, so where we take on questions and things like that. But hopefully we'll be able to share our findings, and some other schools can do those, because we'd love to catalog a lot of how our schools are working. But is there any suggestions on what we should include?
I have a suggestion from the ICA.
Yeah.
Possibly make sure, are you guys reading off of note cards, or are you guys remembering this stuff?
Birchwood? You're muted. I can unmute you. Should I unmute you?
We're not quite sure how it's going to work.
Okay.
We'll have something by tomorrow.
Okay.
What's your suggestion, Hunter?
Because if you are going to read off of note cards, my suggestion was to make it look like you're not reading off of note cards, so maybe have them taped up on the wall or something next to the laptop, so that you're making eye contact constantly.
Some cue cards, some Saturday Night Live cue cards there. I like it. STEM Institute wants to say something.
Yeah. Well, you guys are talking about a service learning project. We're talking, I was thinking over Christmas, or before Christmas, we were doing this Christmas themed bake sale idea for the Humane Society at our town. Well, we for 15 minutes once a day for 3 days, we sold our baked goods, and there were 3 people in here that are not here except for me. But we raised $107 and we handed it in to them. So, yeah.
Way to go.
And for my service project right now, we're going to be doing a gym class for the academy, for the STEM the Institute and Academy. We're going to be doing a gym class since we don't currently have one.
The academy.
Yeah, the academy is our elementary school.
Yeah, great, thanks. That was going to be my other question. Could you explain what the Institute and Academy are? That's great.
Yeah, so the academy is the elementary and the institute's the middle school. 2 different schools just in the same building.
That's great that you get to be together.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
All right, any other comments? Things you want to share? Things you want to see? Does anybody want to play with anything Zoom?
Hey, Todd, I'm going to chime in one thing here, even though I'm out of the screen. I'll be in the back here. I'll be the headless teacher. Goes along, well, I guess it's not Halloween. So here's the deal for a lot of you students that are out there after you saw the Wildlands trip. A couple things you should keep in mind. You were talking about the money and you were talking about, you know, how do you do stuff like this? Well, this is the 10th year of Wildlands. And we didn't do this right away. We didn't have any idea how to do these kinds of things. And we started small with local trips and going camping at the county campgrounds and visiting museums that were local and day trips to the Twin Cities. And then we kept working on how to expand our school's opportunities, and students got involved, and we did fundraisers, and we got parents involved. And we dreamed big and we went for it. And that's, we have a teacher, Mrs. Seibert, who was on there talking a minute ago. She coordinates and runs these kinds of trips for us. So if you're sitting there thinking, man, how do they get to go to Florida for a week and it costs so much money and all that kind of stuff? Don't think about that. Think about how do you get over to the cities for a day and visit a couple really cool museums, or go work with somebody that's working on a Mississippi River project, or work with the DNR that's in your backyard on a couple of days. Take it one step at a time and work with your teachers, and then dream big. And then you will be able to accomplish these things 1 year at a time. So some of you that are sitting there in middle school or elementary school, say that when you're a sophomore or junior, your school should go to Washington, D.C., or you should go to the Black Hills and learn about the Badlands, or you should go to Florida like this and use our trip as an example. So keep that in mind. I don't want anybody to think this is the impossibility, because we didn't know what to do either. We just did it. So keep that in mind, guys.
It's a great point.
Where is Wildlands School?
We are located at Beaver Creek Reserve, which is a county nature center in Eau Claire County. We're about 10, 15 miles outside of Eau Claire, right near Fall Creek. And we're part of the Augusta School District, so right here in Eau Claire County, west central Wisconsin. Just, you guys are, where are you guys from? I see.
Cumberland.
Cumberland.
Right? So yeah, we're like 45 minutes south of you guys.
Okay. Thank you.
Wonderful. Anything else? Well, I wish you all a wonderful day, and thanks for joining today. We had a sparse turnout last week, so it's nice to see tons of people jumping on again, and hopefully we'll load it up again next month. So remember to go to the Google Doc if you have anything that you definitely want to present. Otherwise, come and watch and come and share, and we'll have some great discussion next month. Cool? Great. Have a great day, everybody. See you all. Bye.